Okay, now I will tell you the stage and the steps of greeting the audience. Firstly, start your presentation by greeting the audience in a serious manner that is appropriate for a formal environment. For example, choose a polite salutation like "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen." The second stage is afterward, use a sentence like "It is my pleasure to warmly greet everyone at our event tonight," to welcome the audience to the event. The third stage is thanks the audience and the organizers. For example, begin by expressing gratitude to the audience for attending the event and for the organizers because they invite you to speak. Additionally, make them feel proud and delighted by your presence. Stage 4. In this stage, you should introduce yourself. For any special guest, include unique greeting. For instance, let me introduce myself. I am Nur Atira bintu Junaidi. I am from this company. On top of that, introduce the names of important guests. Okay, lastly, stage 5. Describe the event in detail. Give a brief description of the event's name and objective. If necessary, states the event's name, states the history, and briefly describe the organization that is organizing the event. That is for greeting the audience. Okay, now let's proceed to the step and stage for introducing topic clearly. First and foremost, make sure your audience and listening are fully focused on you. To ensure that the audience can hear the topic you wish to deliver, make sure your voice is loud and clear. The second stage is make sure you are already alert and ready to tell the audience about your topic, subjects, and ideas. For example, today I would like to share with you about blah blah blah. The third stage is be straightforward about the title of your speech. For example, as you can see on the screen, our topic today is. Next, we proceed to the stage 4. Inform your audience of the speech purpose. This is because the one thing you want your audience to take away from your speech is a clear purpose. Having a defined purpose provide the audience with one memorable and straightforward understanding. For example, you should say, the purpose and the goals of my speech today is to let you know about. Okay, the last stage is define and explain the relevance of your topic to your audience. For example, the speaker can say, you will be familiar with the topic today at the end of this talk. That is all from me.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Syahra Himni and now I will explain about the step and stage for establishing credibility in informative speech. First thing first, very early in the speech, the speaker should give the audience his or her full name, title, and any credential that qualify him or her to speak on the topic. Second, the speaker should dress appropriately for the topic. This could be either casual or professional as long as it matches the topic. For example, the speaker wear an outfit that could be worn while gardening, complete with a gardening glove and a sun hat in her speech on horticulture in urban space. Third, the speaker need to explain to the audience why they are qualified to speak on the topic, provide their own personal experience with the topic if relevant. They should demonstrate that they have done sufficient research on the topic to speak about it with authority. Next, speaker need to deliver their speech fluently, expressively, and with confidence. If they speak with conviction and communicate, they care about both their speech topic and their audience. They are more likely to be successful. Lastly, speaker need to use emotion, stories, verbal and physical illustration to connect with the audience. Next, I will explain about the step and stage for attention getter. First, the speaker needs to make sure the option is appropriate and relevant to the specific audience. Different audience will have different background and knowledge, so they should determine whether the information is appropriate. Second, the speaker needs to consider the basic purpose of their speech. There are three basic purposes that they can have for giving a speech: to inform, to persuade, and to entertain. They need to make sure that they select one that corresponds with their basic purpose. They need to tell a joke if their purpose is to entertain. Next, they need to ask a question. Starting with a question generally guarantees that the audience will be engaged by offering an answer. If using a question, they need to make sure that they pause to give the audience a chance to let it sink in. Offer a pause to the audience to let them think about the question that they have just asked. Fourth is speech topic. Ideally, the attention-getting device should have a relevant connection to their speech. Not every attention getter is appropriate for a given topic. Instead, a speaker could start this speech by explaining the topic. Lastly, the speech occasion. Different occasion will necessitate different tones or particular styles or manner of speaking. For example, a persuasive speech about death and dying should be happy and hilarious.
Okay, so I will present the background of the topic and the central idea. Okay, so firstly, you have to define the purpose of your speech, or we call it as general purpose. Okay, so general purpose will fall into 4 categories. First, to inform, to persuade, to entertain, and to commemorate or celebrate. So, the first step is to define the purpose of your speech is to think about which category best describe your overall goal with the speech. What do you want your audience to think, feel, or do as a consequence of hearing your speech? For example, if you are invited to introduce the winner of an award, you are not trying to change the audience's mind about something, but you are honoring the recipient of the award. Okay, so now that you know your general purpose is to inform, persuade, or to entertain, you can start to move in the direction of the specific purpose. So, a specific purpose is a statement built on your general purpose and make it more specific. So for example, if your first speech is an informative speech, your general purpose will be to inform your audience about a very specific realm of knowledge. Okay, so let's move to the third step. Okay, so on this step, you have to apply these 3 contributing elements, which is you, your audience, and the context or setting. So you is represent your interest, your background, experience, education, and the function is to define, describe, and explain the background of your speech. So your audience is represent the audience, such as my classmates, the member of the social work club, my co-workers, and so on. And lastly, the last element, which is the context or settings. For example, how to bake a brownies. Okay, so if you combine these 3 elements, the sentence will be: the purpose of my presentation is to demonstrate to my co-workers the value of informed intercultural communication. And lastly, central idea statement. Okay, so central idea statement is reveal your main point. For example, The central idea statement help focus your presentation by defining your topic purpose, direction, or point of view. So, for example, the specific purpose is to explain to my classmate the effect of losing a pet on the elderly, and the central idea is when the elderly persons lost their animal companions, they can experience serious psychological, emotional, and physical effect. So as you guys can see, the specific purpose is to explain to the classmate about the effect, but the central idea statement explain the effect, the example of the effects on the elderly. Okay, so there are 4 guidelines for writing a strong central idea. So firstly, your central idea should be 1 full sentence. Your central idea should be a statement, not a question. And third, your central idea should be specific and use a concrete language. And lastly, each element of your central idea should be related to the others. So let's move to the next topic, which is identify all main points clearly. So to identify all the main points clearly is the first thing, or first step you have to do is to narrowing down your main point. Okay, so to narrowing down your main point is you have to try to taking a few minutes to brainstorm or develop a list of points. Simply to think of as many different points as you can, and what information does your speech need to convey, accomplish its specific purpose. So this process is called chunking because it involves taking a smaller chunk of information and putting them together with like chunks to create more fully developed chunk of information. And the next step is uniting your main point. So once you have generated a possible list of main point, you have to ask yourself this question, which when you look at your main points, do they fit together? For example, if you look at the 3 preceding main points, so first, school district use software in their operation. What is open source software? Name some specific open source software package that may be appropriate for this school administrator to consider. So you have to ask yourself, do this main point help my audience to understand my specific purpose? Okay, so for example, suppose you add a 4th main point about open source software for musicians. Would this 4th main point go with the other 3? Okay, so it's probably not. While you have made a strong passion for open source music software, that main point is extraneous information for the speech you are giving. So it does not have accomplished your specific purpose and you need to toss it out. Okay, so the third step is keeping your main point separate. Okay, so for example, imagine if you are giving a speech with the specific purpose to inform my audience about the health reason for eating apple and orange. So you could have a 3 main points. First is that eating fruit is healthy, eating apple is healthy, and eating orange is healthy. While the 2 points related to apples and orange are clearly distinct, both of those main points will probably overlap too much with the first point that eating fruit is healthy. So you would probably decide to eliminate the first point and focus on the second and the third. On the other hand, you could keep the first point and then develop 2 new points giving additional support to why people should eat fruits. Okay, So let's move to the fourth point, which is balancing main point. Okay, so one of the biggest mistakes some speakers make is to spend most of their time talking about one of their main point. It's completely neglecting the other's main point. Okay, so to avoid this mistake, you have to organize your speech so as to spend roughly the same amount of time on each main point. Okay, so if you find that one of your main point is simply too large, you may need to divide the main point into two main points and consolidate your other main points into a single main point. Okay, so for example, our preceding example is balance. Okay, so school district use software in their operations. What is open source software? Name some specific open source software package that may be appropriate for this school administrator to consider. What do you think? Okay, so the answer depends on how much time the speaker will have to talk about each of these main points. So if you have an hour to talk, then you may find that these three main points are balanced. However, you may also find them wildly unbalanced if you have only 5 minutes to speak, because 5 minutes is not enough time to even explain what open source software is. So if that's the case, then you probably need to rethink your specific purpose to ensure that you can cover the material in the allocated time. Okay, so the fifth step is creating parallel structure for main point. So you should structure your main point so that they all sound similar. For example, when all your main points sound similar, it's simply easier for your audience to remember your main points and retain them for later. So for example, school district use software in their operation. What is open source software? Name some specific open source software package that may be appropriate for this school administration to consider. So I use the same example. Okay, so notice that the first and third main point are statement, but the second one is question. What is open source software? It's a question. So basically, an example here of main points that are not parallel in structure is you could fit this in one of two ways. So you could make them all question. For example, what are some common school district software programs? And second, what is open source software, and what are some specific open source software package that may be appropriate for this school administrator to consider? Or you could turn them all into statement. And last step to identify all the main point clearly is to maintaining logical flow of main point. So this section goes into more detail of common organizational pattern for speeches, but you have to think logically about the flow of your main point. So when you look at your main point, you can see them as progressive, or does it make sense to talk about one first, another one second, and the final one last? If you look at your order and it doesn't make sense for you, you probably need to think about the flow of your main point.
And today I would like to continue with conclusion and recommendations, as well as vocal variety or range. First of all, we look at the conclusion and recommendation. How to make a conclusion, how to make recommendation in our speech. There are a few steps in order to end your speech according to Peterson in his article, which are: the first step is to making smooth transition in the body language, which giving the audience a sign that the speech is coming to an end by showing a body language such as staying in a place to capture the attention of the audiences. When we capture the attention, we can proceed to end our speech. The second step is to initiate a sign by words such as "I leave you with" or "in conclusion." This is to make sure the audiences know that the speech is coming to an end. This step is also important in order to ensure that the audiences focus on the summarizing of the speech. If we can make sure the listeners focus on the summarizing, the speech will be remembered by them. The third step is to summarizing the speech. This can be done by stating back all the main points and link the point with the topic of the speech. The purpose of this step is to ensure that the audience remember all the main points of your speech. For example, you can say, "Today I leave you 4 main points, which are etc. etc." Or you can say all the main points, which are etc. important to the topic. Proceed to the next step, which is the next step is you need to state how the points given support the main topic. Without proper way to connect the main points with the topic, audiences can easily forget the speech. And if there is a connection, or you tell how to connect the main points with the topic, the speech will be remembered by the listeners. And this is the last step to end the speech. The last step is to end with a gesture or your signature body language. If a speaker end their speech with a gesture, he or she will be easily memorized by the listener. This is because people is easier to remember what they saw rather than what they heard. For example, you can end the speech with a simple smile or a goodbye hand sign, although it's more recommendable to end it with your own signature moves or gesture. In addition, I would like to add some recommendation to end a speech, which are: first, repeat a few keywords. Second, end with a joke. To end your speech with a joke. Third is show how to do steps about the topic. Number 5, last but not least, connect your speech topic with the common grounds and thoughts of the public speaking audience. This way to end a speech brings the overall speech topic in their hearts and minds. Next, I would like to continue range of vocal variety. According to McClure in his article, vocal variety is just one of 9 keys of effective speaking, but it is ignored or misunderstood often. According to McClure again in his article, as its name suggests, the term vocal variety relates to the way the presenter speak and can be broken into several elements, including: first is volume or loudness. Volume or loudness is how loudly or quietly you speak. Second is pitch, rise and fall. Rise and fall is low and high of your voice notes. Next is pace, which is the rate of how fast you need to speak. The fourth element is pause, which is silence in your speech. Next is resonance or timbre, and lastly is your intonation, how you deliver your speech and how high or how low your voice can go in one time. So, to master the placement of the vocals, there are a few steps in suggestion according to McClure, which is: first, highlight the key point or important information in your speech text to know where to increase your volume of voice. This to ensure that you know where to increase or speak more loudly or speak more quietly in your text or in your speech. Second steps is to practice swinging your voice by trying different pitch from high to low notes. This step is important to make sure that you know how to speak in high and low notes. Number 3 or the third step is to read the speech a few times and find the correct pace and pause placement. Number 4, experiment with different type of intonation to find the correct intonation and suitable intonation for your speech. Last but not least, combine all the practice and perfected it before the actual speech, which is, as we know, practice makes perfect. That's all from me, and wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Last one, I will talk about non-verbal communication, that is gesture, posture, and eye contact. Firstly, the speaker start the presentation with good eye contact by looking at the audience to get their attention. This is because of the speaker need to make the audience focus with his or her speech to make sure them understand what they are talking about. Then, in delivering a speech, the body posture needs to stand up straight. The body cannot bend over. This is because the speaker will show that he or she was not energetic and did not attract the audience to listen to him or her. After that, positive body language immediately forge a bond with the audience or the peers. No matter how engaging the topic of the speech is, if delivered without poise or expression, the audience will inevitably lose interest. After all, the speaker's audience likes his or her active participation more than the speech's actual content. Not that the substance is unimportant, but a speaker with strong body language can surpass one with weak body language.